You know, one thing I do want to mention is that we really, you know, this gentleman sitting right up here, he's the one that keeps you guys going. He's the one that keeps your equipment going. He's paid for 40 hours a week, and I think he works about 120. So, about 80. Alan Simmons is the voice on the phone, the face on the phone. He's the one there to help you. And we have been so busy in the last few weeks, couple months, that we may not get to all your calls as quickly and as efficiently as we would like to be, but we're working on that. You have numbers. In fact, there's numbers on the back of the brochure. There's also numbers on the website that you can go to get a hold of us. But try to be patient with us, because right now we're still trying to address some of the feedback that has come in from you guys saying we need to make these changes, or can we do this, as well as get the equipment up and going. And we only have just Alan taking those calls right now. Now, over the next week or so, you're going to see that we'll have more people helping with the technical side to help you out with technical. So just kind of be patient with us, and I appreciate the patience that you guys have extended, and those of you that are watching live, we do appreciate the patience that you've given us as we continue to improve. One thing you need to know about the AO is that it is never going to be finished. Never. We now have full control of the software and the hardware, which is something we never had before. So as feedback comes to us from you in the field, that stuff that we can implement, we're going to do our level best to do. Some of it isn't practical, at least not at this point in time with the technology and the software that we have. But we're working to make this as beneficial to you as possible. Okay, that being said, before we get back into the scan, let me explain a couple things about testing. I don't care who does the testing. The average results of a blood test, urine test, a stool test through a lab is 60 to 65% accurate. That's published by that industry, not by us. The reason there's such a low percentage of accuracy is several things come into play. Machines, the machine's calibration, the technicians, the reagents that are being used. Have the reagents been properly stored and cared for? Have they been handled properly? And so that's why there is such, it's only 60-65% of that is accurate. If you want to validate that for yourself, and I would recommend that you do, next time you go in to a doctor and have a blood and urine drawn for a test, ask them to draw it for 3 and have them send it to 3 separate labs and compare them. Then you won't feel so bad when you pull up a vital scan and it doesn't match some of the stuff that your clients are telling you. These tests are only as accurate as the technician, the machine, and the reagents will allow it to be. And I'm not saying they're not important, because they are important, but we need to look at it for what it is and understand that. Having said that, our machine has those same types of restrictions. Now, we don't deal with reagents, so we don't have to worry about a reagent, making sure it was refrigerated or cared for properly. The machine is already calibrated, and it's not something that you can go in and uncalibrate because it's burned into the processors and into the software. The only thing that changes is how well we're receiving the information from the client. For example, if I take your blood sample but put Deanna's name on it, send it to a lab, it isn't accurate for Deanna. You understand? Or like somebody that comes into your office and gives you fake date, weight, height, name, the test isn't going to be considered to be accurate. When you're dealing with subtle energies, you need to make sure that you and your client are both in the best state of mind to do this. It's that important. The other thing that we found, Alan and I found by working with a couple doctors here in Orem, was that their technicians were working on people all day long, 5 days a week. Well, after a couple of weeks, these technicians started having brain fog and weren't at their level best, and we were wondering what could it be. We found out that by adding two things, only turning on the Cephy when you're actually doing the frequency optimizations, and making sure their feet are on grounding mats. Grounding mats, you can buy them on Amazon. They're like two for $60. Just put in grounding mat on Amazon. In fact, we have a couple here that we can show you later so you can see. Plugs into the wall, and you just put your feet on it. If you don't have a grounding mat, take your shoes off and let your feet sit on the floor. That's at least better than nothing. Why do we want you to do that? One, we don't want your energy to be influencing this system, and we don't want their energies influencing you. You need to be grounded in a good space, okay? Having said that, you will still find in our reports false negatives and false positives. We're not immune to that. Think about it this way. In your body, you have a symphony of chaos of frequencies going on all the time. Millions of them. We've only cataloged, I shouldn't even say we, the Russians only cataloged about 120,000 of those. So when we're scanning you, and the scan is going through and it's picking up all these frequencies, it may pick up frequencies that we don't have cataloged. And so the way the software is written, it will look for the frequency closest to that and plug it in. There's your false positive or a false negative. Now the way we look at that, and we're going to go through that in a minute when we do a scan, it's looking for the frequency closest to what it is, and if you don't have it, we'll try to find it. Now we have two options to that. We can dumb down the machine to where we don't have hardly any of those, and so you'll have very little false positives or false negatives, but you will lose so much resolution of what you're looking for. And even though something may come up as a false positive, when you learn how to read your report, you're going to be able to find and say, whoa, maybe this is linked to this. One of the things we found out when you get a lot of allergy, and people say, I eat almonds all the time, I don't have any issues, I don't have any problem with willow tree, I don't have any problems with these allergies. It's not necessarily that it's a false positive. We found out that it's directly correlated to parasites. You go down that report, and I'm willing to bet you that you'll find a whole bunch of parasites that have come up with a positive. Get rid of the parasites and the allergy sensitivities disappear. See, this is what we want to teach you, and we're learning this, just so you know, from the practitioners who are in the field doing this all the time. They're calling in and saying, you know what, I found a correlation between this and this. Linda Gregerson is the one that gave us that correlation between allergy sensitivities and parasite infestation. See, so the more of this that you learn, if you'll shoot that, Alan has set up an email called info@energydevelopment, right? info@energydevelopment.com. Send us those things to that particular email. Those will get checked. We can run those by our engineers, and we can learn how we can do better at this. Does that make sense? Your input is really, really important to us as we continue to fine-tune and develop this software. There's other correlations. Prostate issues, you'll always find a zinc issue, generally a deficiency in zinc. So as you start to learn how to read your report in its entirety, you'll start to understand something that appears to be a false positive or a false negative, and you'll be able to explain that. Now, one of the last things you ever want to hear your surgeon when you're under the knife for surgery is him say, oops, okay? The last thing your client ever wants to hear from you is, oh my word, this is horrible. All right? You just immediately shot their stress levels through the ceiling, even if they think you're a voodoo doctor. I'm telling you, what we say and the way we say it is very, very important. So learning how to look at that report, and if it looks like, wow, this is really bad, you're going to have to be able to act like you're playing poker and you're winning and you got a winning hand. You got to keep that to yourself until it's appropriate to talk. So you're going down that list and you see these things are coming up 9s or 1s, and you're wanting to say, oh my word, you've got this issue and you got this issue. Wait until you get all the way to the bottom of that report and you're looking at everything in that report, and then all of a sudden you'll start to see those correlations and you'll start to say, okay, this can happen when this is low or high. And so we really don't have an issue with the heart, we really have an issue with the stomach. It's not digesting properly, it's causing issues that mimic a heart issue, but it's actually a digestion issue. In fact, the Chinese refer to the stomach as the second heart. So it's important, like I said in the earlier session about the one brick in the wall. It's one brick. Pull that brick out, nothing's going to happen. So just you look at your whole report, and then you start to put the pieces and connect the dots, and it'll make sense to you. All right. Should we go ahead and do a scan? Who are we going to use as a volunteer? We got a whole bunch. So, we got, okay. Do you have a microphone, Alan?
I do. Some of you learned that when you put the headphones on, if you put them over from the top, eventually you break them. These headphones are meant to be put on from the back. Just she volunteered. Let me put in the information that I know, and then you fill in the blanks, okay?
Alan, why don't we swap and then I can hold that. Okay, so watch again. I know it seems almost elementary to see this, but this is so critical that we do it correctly every single time.
So, add client. Wild guess here. Okay. What's your birth date?
6/1/48.
Is it? Yeah, Outlook. Is it .net or .com?
Is that the spelling correct on the name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that look right? Okay. Now, is there a difference between doing it this way and doing it?
It's best if we don't put in the parentheses.
Okay.
898. 2149.
Okay.
There's a space before that email. So it looks like there's a space.
It's a good question. I was going to address that as soon as you got finished. I'll address it
Okay.
now. Going. Okay. We don't want any spaces up here. Now, we've corrected that issue in the software. It will look for a space and then fix it. But let's say you actually hit the space button twice, it will move that whole field. So just make sure that you're always all the way to the left. So go up to the email
Okay.
and go back one. See, and that takes that space out. So, yep.
Okay.
Same with Vancouver. It's really important that you keep those up. Now, like I said,
So
we
when I
did
click in
fix
here, I
it.
need to.
If we,
Okay.
if we miss one space, the software will compensate. If you miss two spaces, it throws everything out. Okay.
How many inches? And by the way, I've seen some of you sometimes put in all caps. If you put in all caps, when you get to print out your report, the different fields are going to cross over each other. Good size, so best to use upper and lower case.
120.
Brown?
Okay. So we filled out everything just the way we're supposed to. Don't put parentheses on the number.
I can, although
It would
won't
know
fit
it.
on the report.
Unless if there was a decimal point in there, it would know as metric. But it's probably better for your records to put in either pound, the pound or the M.
And the color here.
Hair color is when you're growing up. Okay, so once that's done, we've done it, and we've made sure it's all correct, then we hit save. She will automatically be highlighted. Now, in the next version coming out, the very next one coming out, this page here will only be seen if the practitioner enters in a code, the code that he established or she established. So none of this will be visible to your clients anymore, okay? Select technician, we need to add. And when you add it, it will automatically highlight the last person you put in, and it'll keep them in alphabetical order, top to bottom. Okay, we'll run a vitals. Just so you know, this is not one of the newer
Cradles. Let's see.
headsets.
Okay.
We had 500 new cradles made, and they're coming over on a container. They left on the 10th of August. They were supposed to be here on the 2nd of September. But in the last, or the 2 weeks right after the 8th of August, 3 typhoons hit Hong Kong, Guangzhou, southern China. And our container never left until just 3 weeks ago. And so it's due here next week. So the new cradles, those of you who have the older systems, you'll be getting a new cradle sent to you, and you'll send your other one back. And we fix that issue where the communication comes up. Okay? All right, now this is important. We've said this previously. When you run a vitals report, you don't even go through this report. You immediately go out, hit frequency optimization, and let it do it again. We do that. The first time you run a scan on the individual, they may not be completely relaxed, they may not be completely in tune, or whatever. We want to do an optimization right after the first scan, and we look at the second one. Now, I want to talk about optimization. We'll do it in a minute, but see, she was only given 30 seconds. Now, when the report comes up, that first scan gets moved over to the far right side under previous scan. That's the first one. This is the first way to catch false positives or false negatives. Because if it was a false positive, that is a false positive up on the top. See, it's a 9 or an 8 and a plus. But when we ran the second one, it wasn't. But this allergy is still there. So an allergic to ryegrass pollen, not ryegrass, but the pollen of ryegrass. Now that would be an indication of one of two things. One, it could be a false positive. Two, more likely, we've got a parasite issue. Or, the obvious is, you do have the allergic reaction. And so how are we going to do that? We're going to scroll all the way down and look at the whole report before we assess, is that a real issue? Okay? So the first scan on vitals is the throwaway. The second one is the one you work from.
False positive, false positive, false positive, false positive.
You see how that cleans that up? It just kind of goes through and it says, "Oh yeah, that wasn't it." It's out of the way. It's out of the way.
Also, on the positive negative, we're not using this scale where 5 is optimum. This is becoming an ascending scale from 1 to 9, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So
Okay, miasm's a good quote. We'll come to
a
that.
2 for gluten would be a very low sensitivity to gluten. Not like a celiac type situation, but a low sensitivity. And a 9 would be a high. We use this scale when we're looking at the items like amino acids and basic physical. Pluses and minuses, where a 1 is low, ascending up 2, 3, 4, up into the point where we get 8, 9 is the high part when we're using the positive and the negative. Everybody understand that? Okay. All right.
Now, while we're going to do this, let me just make an observation here. We're in a big room here, a lot of people. This is not an ideal situation to do a scan on an individual. So I wouldn't go on this report anyway. This is just for us to go through and kind of get a feel how to do it. Conditions in the room are really important. You don't have to turn off your lights or any of that, but for us, we like a nice lazy chair, a lazy boy chair, and a comfortable chair for the client to sit in. We'll make sure that they have either a glass or a bottle of purified water that they can sip. You always want to make sure and remind your clients when they come in to make sure they're well hydrated. That does not include coffee, tea, and Pepsi or Coke. Water, water, water is the hydration. So have them drink a glass of water. Give them a glass of water because water is what helps us conduct those frequencies in our body. So making sure they're well hydrated. Okay, so as you go down, let's... Okay. Question was brought up a little earlier about my blood test said I have anemia. I don't have enough red blood cells. And here this says it's positive. Now, if this was that individual, it's not. But if it was, and he knew that or she knew that, I'd want to know that too. So before I go into the explanation, that brings up another point. Sit down with your client. Are you missing any organs? Have you had a hysterectomy? Do you still have your appendix? We're not psychics. We don't read their mind. And if we're truly going to educate somebody, then we need to know as much about them as possible. Have a questionnaire that you have them fill out so that you know. In energy medicine or energy work, whether you've had an organ taken out physically or not, the energetic signature of that organ is still there. Proof, scientific proof, phantom pain. Somebody's been to war, lost his arm, but every morning his fingers and wrists are hurting. He doesn't have a finger and a wrist physically anymore. The Russians did some scalar photography where they can actually show, they'll take a leaf, and that's one of the ones you can pull up on the internet and see. There'll be a picture of a leaf that's have been torn off, and there's an energetic picture of the leaf. And where the leaf is, you see a real strong definition line around the leaf, but hardly anything. But the faint image of the rest of the leaf is there, meaning that the energetic signal of that leaf is there. Same with when we remove an organ from the body. The energetic signal is there, even though the organ isn't. People will say, oh, see, I don't have a gallbladder, and you're saying my gallbladder's fine. What that means is your body's compensating. If it was a 5, it means your body's dealing with its absence with no problem. It's dealing with it. And if it's a 2 or a 1 or a 9, it would tell you how well the body's dealing in its absence. Again, so you have to look at this, but if you're going in with only part of the information, they haven't told you this, then you're being set up to be tricked, and that's not what we're in the business to do. And if someone starts to play that game with you, end your session and send them home. Does that make sense? Okay, so back to here. In this case, the red blood cells, according to his lab test, say that he's anemic, okay? So you want to go in and say, well, why would his blood test say he's anemic and the vital scan says it's perfectly normal? Here's what I would recommend. Look at the whole thing. There might be something else. It might be not that he's anemic. He's anemic is a symptom of another issue. So we want to find out what else is going on in the body that would be causing his red blood cells to be low before we just say, well, this is a false positive or a false negative, which it could very well be. Or it's a symptom of something we need to find. That's why your red blood cells aren't bad. They just don't have enough of them. And what would be causing that? See, there's a lot of information in this report that you can't just look at it at face value and say, oh, you have this,
or that, or you don't have this or that. I know this is making it sound confusing. It really isn't. If you just have to look, and if he was to say, well, my lab report says I'm anemic, but this says, then we're saying, okay, we're going to look more. We're going to look more into your system and find out where we are. Some people accept that, some people won't, and that's okay. Okay, go ahead, Alan. All right, let's just stop here for a second. Let's say that this particular category here had a bunch of issues that you want them to deal with. Their diet, maybe. Their omega-3s and fatty acids are out of whack. Here's where you'd use the Snagit program or the Light Shot program, where you'd open that up and you'd highlight that and save it. And then when you're all done with your thing, you can bring up all those things that you just highlighted and just copy and paste them onto a Word doc and send it out. So here's all the stuff. Instead of sending them home with the report saying, go read this through, here you can actually make notes and stuff. So that's why the Snagit programs and the Light Shot programs are really helpful. Okay? Go ahead. Okay. A lot of information on this chart. Is there any specific questions about this report? And let me bring this mic back to you. Oh, you got it. Okay, go ahead.
My question pertains to the minerals and vitamins. The readings, if I have a 2, say a low reading on a particular good mineral for myself, not the heavy minerals, does that mean it needs to be increased? Does it, is that what's showing up in my body?
Okay.
My question is reading the minerals and the vitamins.
Okay, that's a really good question. So for those that maybe didn't hear that, because I don't know if that mic's on, but what does it mean when you see a mineral or a vitamin that has either low or high? Does it mean that they're deficient or too much? Okay, that's a tricky one. And to be honest with you, the way the software reads it, it just sees it as an imbalance. The way that we think that it's being interpreted is when it's high, it's one of two things. You're so low that it's become critical that you don't have it, or you have too much. The way you'd ask that question is, okay, are you taking a XYZ supplement for this, or are you eating this kind of diet? You drink a lot of soda. Soda depletes our body, especially a lot of mineral. So if they say no, and I'm taking a really good, in this case, maybe it's Nordic Naturals. They're taking Nordic Naturals omega-3s, which is a good one. And most people assimilate Nordic Naturals really well. So then we would say, okay, well then if it was a 9, then we would say, okay, your body's not assimilating this product. And so I would suggest changing brands and see, we'll test it again in a week and see if it's still high or if it's starting to come down. Just because Robin can assimilate a particular supplement doesn't necessarily mean that Dr. Labram will. We're all different. The way we eat, the way we process stress, the way we think is going to affect how well we assimilate and digest our foods and our supplements. So it's important when you see those numbers. So back to your question directly. If it's low, back to the same questions. Are you taking a supplement? And let's say that they're low, but they're taking a lot of supplements and the number's high. That generally means that the body is now storing that vitamin or that mineral in its fatty tissue because it says, I need this mineral or I need this vitamin. But it can't break it down, but it's holding on to it because it needs it. As soon as the right supplement or vitamin that can be assimilated by the individual is taken and it starts assimilating it, the body will start to release the unhealthy ones that are being built up in the tissue. So again, this is not a simple, like you get a blood test that says your liver enzymes are elevated, your kidney enzyme or your kidney bun is out of whack. This isn't that simple. The vitals test, as simple as it is to take, it's a very complicated report. So you've got to take it with you've got to go through there and look at each item and see how and where the correlations are talk about their diet, talk about their lifestyle. Are they under a lot of stress? All of these things will help you understand the report. That's probably confusing for some, but if you pay attention to it, you'll start to see those patterns and those correlations. I know, Deanna, you do. I know, Jennifer, you do. I know, Juanita, that you do, as you played with this. But these people have been working with this technology for years. You will start to see those things. As you start doing it, you'll start to see those patterns. Again, the best practitioner is one who asks questions. Ask the questions, get as much information from your client as you can, and as much as they're willing to share with you. Then look at the report, look at all of those things combined. Are there any questions on that? And if you're online, you want to ask a question, text it, and they'll give us the question. Okay, real quick, just microphone.
So on the macro and the micro minerals, can you address that? Because some of the minerals are the same in both categories.
I cannot. And it's not because I don't want to. It's because I don't know enough about the minerals. So people who understand the minerals, and that could probably answer that much better than I can. Do we have somebody in the room that does understand the body minerals and correlations? You do?
I know what she's talking about. So if you look
Microphone.
you look up there, you're going to have like 10 up on the top and then 10 on the one that has
The micro.
The macro. If you have enough, that's where you look for the top part. It's the part the body uses. If on the bottom part it also says like a 2 or a 9, that means you had enough and now you have too much. Some of them are in both places, on the heavy metals and above it. So you look at the above for your body, but look at the other one, and if it says more, then you have too much.
Okay.
So we need some chromium, but you can have too much. You need some iron, but you can have too much.
Okay. Does that help? Was that helpful for everybody? Dr. Labor.
I would just like to make a comment in relation to the last one from Juanita. The way we get different minerals in our body is different too. We all know of these toxic chemical exposures in air pollution and industrial exposure and various different things like that we all know about, that maybe some of the very same minerals our body needs that we would take otherwise in an organic fashion in your diet, which the body processes fine and uses. So even though it says zinc or something else like that, depending on how it came to the individual could determine if it's healthy or if it's toxic.
Okay, that's a good point. All right, so as you can see on this test, you have a wealth of information here. 85% of it or more is going to be dead on, at least according to what we've seen in our testing so far. But 15% of it is up for more research, for more development. So look at your report, look at it its whole, and look at your client. And learn as much as you can. Alan, can you go to AO Scan real quick? You have a resource called aovitals.com.
Okay. Let's see, where is it?
It's under.
Yeah, let me just.
So if you go to aovitals.com and you select your language, in this case would be English, and just for fun, let's go down to one of the mineral pages. All of the information that we could glean on these different minerals is right here for you. So this is a resource that you can use. It also takes it puts you one step away from diagnosing, because you're taking them to a website that explains this information. Again, like I explained in the first session this morning, we are educators. We are not doctors diagnosing, treating, and curing. So use your resources. This web page is up there for you, and we will continue to add and again, it's all public information. None of this is diagnosing anything. Okay? Okay, thanks, Alan. You can go back. Okay. Before I leave the vital scan, is there any other questions pertinent to the vital scan that we might want to address right now?
How often should you be doing it on a client?
Okay, good question. How often do you do a scan? On the older system, we could only scan every other day. On this system, you can scan every day, every single day. And the reason for that is the way we do frequency optimization versus the old metatherapy. Well, let's step back again. Once a day, and let's say that you have a clinic where you have multiple modalities. You might have a chiropractic adjustment. You might have a post-electromagnetic field mat. You might have a hyperbaric chamber. You might have a lot of different modalities. And you want to find out if that modality is going to help somebody. So you can do a vital scan, then go have them do whatever the modality is, or take the supplement that you want them to test, wait 1 hour, and redo the vitals test. And it will show you if it had a positive effect, a negative effect, or a neutral effect. It'll only allow you to do that one time in a 24-hour period of time. Does that make sense? You would only use that when you're trying to validate a protocol. Otherwise, once a day. Now, it'll let you scan and scan and scan, and nothing will change. You'll just burn up a whole lot of time. So after you've done, if you do a second one, that's all you'll be able to do in that day that's actually reading a scan. All right, let me talk about frequency optimization. In the old system, it was called metatherapy. You'd scan them, then you'd click on a button, and it would go through and it would do a therapy on all the frequencies. And the way their frequency worked was all of your negative frequencies, all your frequencies that were out of range, they would play all those frequencies back into the brain, but 180 degrees out of phase. With the idea of noise-canceling headphones. You take the noise outside, you play that noise inside the ear cup, about 180 degrees out of phase. When the two hit, they cancel. Thus, they call them noise-canceling headphones. And you'll hear, when you turn on the little switch, about a second later, you'll hear everything just kind of go silent. The problem with that, it's highly effective, but the problem with it is we, our human nature says, oh my word, we got a little bit better, let's do it again. Oh, it got a little better, I'll do it again. And they just keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going, and pretty soon the body is stressed. The body's had enough. And now you're starting to make a condition worse, just kind of like you're taking too much medication. 2 ibuprofens is good, so maybe 4 is better. See, it's the same type of concept. Different way of getting to the body, but the concept is still the same. What we did in the new system is when we take our first readings from our client, the first thing it does is analyze the client. What did I tell you? It takes 3 times for the system to really learn an individual. Once it's done that and you go do a frequency optimization, before it does the optimization, it says, okay, with this condition, with this individual, with her current or his current physical, mental, emotional, spiritual state, they can have these frequencies for this long. And it combines it, puts it together, and sends it out. Takes all that guesswork out, and it takes out the possibility of people going in and doing too much. We work on the tuning fork principle. We encourage the unhealthy frequencies to move towards balance instead of forcing them through a cancellation, like on the old system. I'll repeat that again. We work on encouraging, not forcing. We don't do the noise canceling, the frequency canceling. We do the frequency encouragement by putting in the frequencies that will encourage the frequencies that are out of balance to move towards balance. See, it's just like everything in life is balance, isn't it? That's why our scale is 1 to 9, with 5 being perfect. 5's your balance. Now, the other question that came up is, I do a scan, I do an optimization, but my numbers didn't get better, they got worse. Okay, let's go back to what we're all familiar with. Commercials on TV about supplements or about medicines. Well, if you take this, it's going to help your blood do this, but it might cause your liver to do this and this and this and this and this. There's side effects. If I had any one of you get down and do 25 sit-ups right now, your stomach would be sore, your back would be sore. Did I just put a stress on a bunch of muscles in your abdomen that were perfectly not stressed just a minute ago? Of course I did. So what's that going to do on the report? It's going to show, hey, this got worse when this got better. Well, that's a temporary, because there's a stressor. You remember, we're measuring frequencies. We're measuring balance and energy. Give you another example. If I give you 300 milligrams of niacin, you drink it down, you're going to flush, you're going to feel like you're on fire, you're going to start itching, burn, you're going to think that I'm having a heart attack because you're going to have this racing of the heart. Your liver enzymes are going to go through the ceiling. Now, if I did a scan on that, I'm going to see things out of whack. I'm going to see my heart race. I'm going to see all sorts of things. And you're going to say, oh, my word, that just made me worse. But if I wait an hour, I go back in, I find out that everything went right back to balance. And not only did it get back to balance, it got better. Niacin will cause your liver enzymes to elevate. But as soon as the flush finishes, your liver enzymes go back to normal within an hour or two. That's one of the things that the dark side of medicine is telling you. Don't take that much niacin because it's going to cause your liver enzymes to go through the ceiling and you're going to damage your liver. Partly true, mostly false. 10% of a lie and 90% of truth is still a lie. It's not causing any damage to your liver. It is causing your liver to exercise and function much harder, but it immediately goes right back to normal. Same when we do a frequency optimization. You're going to cause parts of the body to resonate differently, which could cause something to feel stressed. And when it feels stressed, it means it is no longer in balance. Let it do its job, and those things will generally go right back to normal and generally become stronger. So just because it doesn't show you, that we show you that it goes bad, we didn't used to. The first versions that came out would never show you a bad number. It would only show you that it got better. We took that out because it's not true. We're just like the pharmaceutical company at that point. You're going to see exactly what it is as we can see it from what we're picking up from you. That way you can say, okay, this is going to cause you what we call in the industry a Hertzheimer reaction. We're detoxing maybe a little faster than you should because you're not properly hydrated. A Hertzheimer reaction will show up definitely worse than a balance. Is this making sense or am I going on too long? Okay. Any other questions pertaining to the vital scan? And some of that information about frequency optimization, all of that information also carries forward to comprehensive.
Can you do the AO body now after you do that scan?
Okay, good question. Okay, AO body is not part of the scanner. It doesn't scan. That's another one of the tools. But let's show AO body a little later.
Okay.
Okay, I want to go into AO body because that's like the frosting on your cake with this scanner. And when you start to see that, you're going to get really excited. There was something I wanted to say to you about the frequency optimization. Oh, frequency optimization will go anywhere from 30 seconds to 300 seconds, 5 minutes. It will not go any longer because any longer than that can then start to cause the reverse. It's like turning the volume up in your car too loud. It feels great for a second or two, and then pretty soon it's not so great. So, and it will determine which sets of frequencies your body needs and for how long your body can tolerate it to get the maximum benefit. Right now, it doesn't show you what frequencies we're putting into the body. In the next couple versions, I don't know if it's the next one or the one after, it will actually show you which sets of frequencies that it was playing back in for your optimization, just so you have it for your records. Question, Mike?
So the frequencies that it's that's putting back into your body, is it gathering from the database
Yes.
within the system? So when you scan, say, your left arm of the nervous system, and some of the issues that have come up within the database, and you're looking at the like the emotions and the conflict matrix and all of that. So it's taking everything that shows up there and putting it into that frequency that's coming back.
Not yet. Let me explain. That's a really good question.
Okay.
Right now, it goes through. If I scan the top cut of the heart, and I do a frequency optimization, it's only going to take and do the play into the optimization, the frequencies pertaining to just the heart. Okay. But let's say that in the course of your session, you scan the vertebrae spine, and you do the brain arteries and the brain veins, and you do the lower abdomen GI, and you didn't want to do the frequency optimization on each one. At the very end, and it's not in this version, it's one that'll be in a version, probably not even the next one, but the next one out. You could opt to do one general frequency optimization for all the scans you did in that session, which will save you some time. However, if you've got a client that's, I won't say critical, but a client that really needs all the help, I would take the extra time and I'd do the optimization after every scan. It's a little more thorough. But if you've got a patient, it's more like it's just his annual checkup and he's doing pretty good, you could go through everything and then just do one optimization at the end. And that will probably come out sometime end of October or November. So you'll have the option. Right now you don't. It'll only do frequency optimization on the last thing you scanned. Yes. But no, wait. Just that item you just scanned. Incomprehensive. Now in the vitals, it'll scan for everything. But in comprehensive, it'll only do the one that you just finished scanning.
How do you compare it to last week's scan?
Can you do an optimization for me real quick? Okay, the question that you heard was, how do you compare it? Right now, we can only compare the scan you just did and a frequency optimization of that scan. It finishes here. Now do an optimization. So we just did a scan. Now we're going to do an optimization. Said here she needed 30 seconds. Again, it's not on her head, so you can see it. No, it's fine. No. It has nothing to do. It just wasn't. It's not picking up enough, so it just picked the default lowest, 30 seconds. But when this finishes, it'll give you a percentage from the scan and then immediately after one frequency optimization. What Jennifer was asking, well, how can I compare this last one compared to one we did 3 weeks ago? See down here where it says negative 22? We didn't do her any good. See the negative? Why? Because it wasn't on your head. Thank you. Okay, so when you're doing this, this should be in the next version coming out. Isn't that what we talked about last night, Alan? When you click on, say, heart top cut, it would open up all of the heart top cuts that you've scanned since you started with that client. And then you could pick which one and compare it to the last one. So that is a feature that will be available to you in the very next session. Okay? One thing we do not have yet that the old system had was the ability to take somebody's supplement, put it on the machine, and say, okay, is this supplement good for me or bad for me or neutral? We can't do that yet, but that is coming out, and that will be out sometime in October, early November. At that point, you've basically got everything that was originally in the 90 system.
Okay, so backing up to the vital scan. So is there really a need to do it every day? I don't, I'm doing it like every 6 to 8 sessions because
Okay, no,
we're
the question
working
that
on
you asked earlier was how often can you do it?
Yeah.
The question you're asking now is, do you need to? And the answer is absolutely not.
Okay.
Okay. In fact, I would recommend maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, so second question, on the amino acids, can you make any clarification or help us in our learning of understanding of how to read the amino acids?
You're going to read the amino acids the same way you read minerals and vitamins.
Okay.
It's not a clear-cut, simple, this is what it means. You really have to look at the whole thing, find out what their diet is, see how much stress it is. What is it, 10 of the 21 amino acids are essential. The other 11, 10 are made by the body, and the others have to be gotten from diet. And so there's just a lot of questions there.
Is it possible for you to change that so that the essential amino acids are in one block and the rest of them are in another block?
The answer to the question is yes. The
Thank
answer is
you.
how soon.
Put it on your list, please.
I'll put it on the list. Just so you understand, for us to make one change in vitals is about 3 days' work. And it's because of how the forms have to line up and how the data has to be superimposed on them. That is a good one. And we are making some changes. We'll add that to the list. In fact, that's a really good one.
Okay, so now I want
Separate
to
the
clarify
two.
understanding as well. So when it scans, it's just looking, it's reading, it's finding things. But when we do frequency optimization, it's both scanning and sending frequencies at the same time?
No. Good question. You're not scanning and optimizing at the same time. It does an optimization, and then from that optimization, it just tells you what changed. So it just goes down, and it doesn't scan every single item. It will go down the database, and if there was a change, it'll tell you what the change is. Does it make sense? No.
No, because I'm thinking, well, how are we getting that change? How is it reading the change? Because the scan is reading, the optimization is sending.
We're back
But
on vitals report, right?
Right, yes.
Alan,
Well,
can you
and
go
this
back?
too.
All right, well, okay. I can't do it on this, though. So go back to vitals and do I don't know if this will allow us to do
Like
one
here's a
mouse to
1 that went to or here's a 2 that went to a 1. Is that it?
Yes.
I'd have to do a new person because it won't let me do it because it hasn't been an hour. But, okay, the optimization part is only a few seconds. Now the frequencies are going to go on for whatever that time period that was. But the body will respond to what's going to change within the first 12 to 18 seconds. Does that make sense?
But there is scanning then happening at that time.
There's a comparison scan. It's a little bit different, but yes.
It's different, but there is
There is
some
a
kind
scan.
of scanning going on.
It compares here, and then with this frequency optimization, these are the changes that will take place, and it just rewrites the form.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Okay, I think unless there's any other questions on vitals, we'll move on. Okay, let's go back to
I'll send it you,
comprehensive.
okay?
Okay, so let's do the vertebrae, the spine vertebrae. Yes, please. No, that's connective tissue. Right there. Skeleton vertebrae. Okay. I like this one. I like this one a lot. The left side is showing you your discs. The right side is showing you the bone. Okay, so it's real easy to see. So as the scan goes through, it now writes the information onto that form. So we got cervical disc C7, so the disc there is a 1, and if you look over at C4, we've also got a 1. Thoracic T2 vertebrae is a 9. So I don't know if you've done much with this, Dr. Labram. Our microphone person is asleep.
I appreciate the opportunity to respond to this because even though my exposure to the AO scan is quite limited at this time, I have had 35 years of experience with standard radiology on the spine. And consistently, with hardly any exceptions, when you take a person that's 60 years or older, you can almost every time find a degenerative disc at C7 and C6. You'll find stress at C1 and 2 on almost every person, even if they're younger. And a few of these vertebral scans like you have on the screen that I've done have correlated with that pretty much exactly based on person's age and so forth. I would be brave enough to say that if Eileen were a 22-year-old person, that C7 reading that you have there is a number 1, which indicates degeneration and disc thinning to me. If you were comparing that to standard radiology, I think that's what you'd find, which would be hypoactivity or decreased function. If she were a 21 or 22-year-old person, that would most likely be in closer to a normal reading.
I'm going to tell you, thank you. I'm going to tell you that I hurt my, I couldn't stand on my leg, my left knee. I couldn't stand on my leg. It just hurt and hurt and hurt. And
It was too loud.
I had a doctor tell me that I needed to have the meniscus changed.
Better?
So I had the knee surgery done, and it didn't make any difference. I go see a doctor in Mexico, I don't know what you call it, not a chiropractor, an orthopedic doctor, or anyway, bone doctor. He says, "You don't have any problem with your knee. It's your lumbar that's the problem." I said, "No, it's not. It's my knee. My knee hurts. My back's fine." He says, "It's your lumbar." He said, "Go down and do a scan, an MRI of your lower back." And so I did, and sure enough, L3, L4, and L2, L4, and L5 were herniated. I didn't feel anything in my lower back, but it was my knee. And the way this doctor explained it to me was it was pinching or some way of my nerve that went to my knee. So I felt it in my knee, but it was my back. So I come back and I scan my back, and sure enough, my knee was fine. L3, L2, L4, and L5 on the scan. Now, this was on the last system, but it was all 6s, which is the worst you could get. So, or 5s and 6s. So the scan correlated completely with the MRI. And here's another one of those things where my knee was the problem. And I'm telling the doctor it's my knee, but it wasn't my knee at all. It was my lower back. So it's same with the vitals, or same with anything you're looking at. What is causing this problem here could be something entirely somewhere else in the body. Okay, so we're still optimizing. Needed help. Okay. Can't move anything until that's finished, so we're just going to let it go. No, it's fine. Any questions on this while we're waiting? On reading the comprehensives? Yes.
When can we expect an update with the categories where, like, the male lymphatics is missing and little things like that, and one of the knees has...
A little closer to your mouth. There you go.
So I'm just wondering when you're going to be updating the categories again with the things that are missing. And
Well, lymphatics is already in. Lymphatics isn't
Okay.
one that's
I
missing,
just
but there
haven't
are
got
some.
that one.
Can
Okay.
you scroll down? I think lymphatics is there, or up, like there.
The male...
Okay, there's a lot needing to go in and a lot waiting to go in. We stopped putting the categories in and the databases in until we were more secure with the structure of the software and the foundation of the software, so that we didn't have to go in and change everything again. We're very comfortable with where our foundation is now and where the software is, so now we'll start adding. Now, the next one that's coming out, which is going to be in the next week or two is addressing the two most common questions we got from the field. And that's the HIPAA thing, getting rid of all the names on there, and being able to do comparative scans. So those two are in the process and are almost finished. The next one will be the Vegeto, where you can actually check a subject or take a supplement, put it on the machine, and it'll tell you if it's going to help, hinder, or be neutral. That one's going in, and when that one goes in, there will be some more database or some more categories going in. Okay, so when we're done with this, there was a 49% improvement. Okay? All right, let's go to database, because this is the next one that we're weak in. Right now, we only have, 7 or 8 databases we can check. And there are a few items in these databases that need to be fixed. One of them is in the software, we didn't put in gender. We didn't put in the gender specific. So you'll do a database and it'll come up and it'll tell the guy his ovaries are in trouble. And so, or the reverse for the women. So that's being fixed on not the one coming out this next week, but the one after. It will now check for the gender to make sure that it's the same thing, the same gender. But we should have about 7 or 8 more databases put in by the end of October, and close to double the number of categories that you can scan. Okay, and if you in your work, if there's something that you particularly need to see a scan on and we're not doing that, send it to info@energydev.com so that we can look at it and see if we can add it. Some things we can and some things we cannot. Okay? Okay. So what we've got, whatever's highlighted here, which in this case is skeleton vertebrae, and we've got pathomorphology, which is disease. So you go up and you click Analyze Database, and it'll take 5 seconds. And then it will list what it finds. Okay? So it was like in the old system where you'd click Test, you could pick your topics, hit Test, same thing. The values are really more for our purposes, not so much for you. Nidus, okay, is it a cause, it is a symptom, or is it not even real? And in the two that are blank, generally means that it's close to something, it's a frequency that was close, but it's not. This isn't the issue, otherwise there would be a number. And then it tells you how long it's been there. Now, if it's in blue, blue means it's in the future. So if you don't make some changes, whether it's diet, lifestyle, supplementation, whatever, you're headed towards this. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it, but you become susceptible to getting that. If it's in red, now here, this has something to do with the liver. And it's, according to this, has been 5 years. Now, in this case, I would say to you that you need to, take this to your doctor and see how this lines up. Be interesting to see, and of course, the scan. Again, this isn't an accurate scan in this environment, but that's how that works. So the next one, you can click on organ, analyze, and it'll do the same thing on the organ. In one of the updates coming up, probably November, December timeframe, you'll be able to click on each one of those and then hit analyze and do it all in one pass instead of having to do each one individually. I like doing it individually for my own purposes, but in a lot of circumstances, you can do just fine with one overall database analyzation. Okay, so again, no causes there, so this would be nothing. I'd immediately go down to emotional. So anyway, does that make sense? Does this make sense to everybody? So this just kind of helps point you in the direction. How far do you want to dig down? Which way do you want to dig? Is it an emotional issue that's causing the physical anomaly? And a lot of times it is. And sometimes it's a physical thing causing the emotional. So you're going to learn to see this as you look at your reports. The more scans you do, you'll start to see those correlations. Okay, so we can go back. Okay, is there anything else on comprehensive that you feel that we need to address right now?
I'd like to discuss the database perhaps just a little bit more, or are we going to do that at another time?
Go back to the database?
To the database.
Okay.
So, a couple of questions. Number one, normally when I do a client, they're going to have 2 to 3 things that are going to show up. Occasionally, I'll have someone that has 5, 6, 7, and 8, and it's pretty consistent. What can I understand by that?
Well, that's a question that's impossible to answer in this setting. I would need to see exactly what you're talking about. What 7 are coming up? Is it 7? Is it the same 7 in every item? That doesn't.
No, it's just that every category, well, pathomorphology would have 7 or 8, organ condition 6 or 7, bacterial 7 or 8, parasite 7 or 8, and this is consistent
With this one individual.
Yeah, this one individual. I've had about 5 individuals that this has been the case, that they have had a long list on, no matter what I was scanning, this would happen a lot. And in my mind, being a doctor, I'm thinking, okay, we got some investigation to do, that this person's got a lot of things going on and they may not even be aware of it. But I'm not really sure, and I want to have a better understanding if that is what that is. So that's my first question on database.
You want to answer that one? The question as you've posed it, I think, would be impossible for anybody to answer at this point in time. But I think your initial assessment is probably pretty close to being right on.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to go online and say, this is it, hands down, because I don't know. But with more experience, more investigation into this, we're going to be able to see if that is a pattern. But it does, your initial assessment of this person is definitely receptive to this type of therapy. Otherwise, you wouldn't be coming up with this much information. But what it all means, I don't know. And I don't know if any of us here could know with a certainty.
I would invite anyone else here who's been doing it longer than me privately to come up and
Yeah,
discuss
let's talk
this
about
with
that
me.
after.
Okay,
Second
so
question.
my next question is like no apathy came up as an emotional matrix. And I was perplexed, as was my client. Because this is a person that does have apathy, because she's a healer herself, and I didn't know what to say. So I'm wanting to understand some of these things that just don't quite make sense.
Well, in Eileen's case, she didn't have any sarcasm until she started hanging out with me.
Okay, the questions that you've posed are really good questions. I just don't know how to answer those, where I can say it's like this. So it's something we'd have to look at. And you're sure welcome to talk to people that have done more work on it.
Okay, so
I just don't know.
Okay, so leading to the third question, in your very first video live that you did, you said that we would be doing a disservice if we didn't add the database in. Can you please address that again in this group?
Okay. The database is absolutely critical. The question that came up earlier too was, how do you know how far to dig deep, which way you're going to dig, how to go? The database is the only way you can find which direction you want to go. Because in the database, you're going to find out, is it an emotional, is it a disease, is it a physical thing, is it a parasite, is it a bacteria? This helps you figure out what's going on in the body. If you don't do the database, you're just flying blind. You go, you do your scan, you do your optimization, pat them on the button, out the door they go. That's not the way you want to do this. The database gets down to the root, the cause, the nidus of what's going on, and that's where you need to go. We have practitioners that hate using database because it takes so much time. But that's where you find, and really it's only in the first 2 or 3 sessions that you spend with a client that you're having to spend that kind of time. After that, it's you pretty much have got down where you're going, you've got a good game plan to follow. But if you don't do your groundwork, if you don't do that initial stuff, you're going to lose something, you're going to miss something, or you're going to completely send them in the wrong direction. So the database is critical.
Okay, can I share? I need to share this with you then. So I have a niece that has polymyositis. a severe case of it. And her sister consistently has polymyositis show up in her database. She doesn't have it, but to me, in my mind, I'm thinking, and so is she, having lived in the home with that sister, that energy, she's carrying that energy from her sister of that polymyositis.
Okay,
Is this correct?
You are dead on that. I'll give you another example that just happened to us this 2 weeks ago. 1 second, I'm going to go over this. I have a client going through our center right now, and I can share this with you because he's given me permission to do so. He went to Africa for some enlightenment. I don't know. Anyway, he spent 3 weeks there, and he got malaria. Almost died, sick as dog, flies him home. Now, his brother went, but didn't get malaria. Comes back. Now, I want you to listen to this all the way. The one that got malaria spent time in the hospital, went through the medical process, got all that stuff done, comes home. The brother who did not get malaria came home. They both went through the program. When we scanned them, the one that did not get malaria came up with malaria with an 8, and the one that did have contract malaria had no malaria at all. The difference is the one that had the malaria went through the program, the medicine took it out of his system, doesn't have it, but the brother was exposed to it but never contracted it. Does it make sense? That goes along with your sister or your client with the sister. What is it with pregnancy when the husband gets sick, when the woman gets sick? It's, what do you call it? Sympathy pain. We do carry those who we're around or those that we care with. We do carry a lot of their pain and a lot of their emotional stuff. So in normal medicine, normal science, they would tell me I was absolutely nuts. And that's okay. I'm happy to be in that category. So was a bunch of other good people through history. We don't know, and neither do they. We're all on here to learn, and we're learning through this method. They learned to another method, and unfortunately the two methods don't generally share much time with each other. Okay, any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Mine is more of a comment. Conditions referred to like polymyositis are kind of rare, and they're very serious, they're difficult. And the word came out brother or sister in this case. And I would think there's a genetic predisposition just hearing about your two clients there. I've had the experience where you have a difficult case to diagnose or to treat, and it's giving you a hard time clinically. Oftentimes I've just sat down with a person and said, do you have brothers and sisters? Yes. Tell me everything, every single detail about your brother or sister's health history. And by the time you get through that, you've picked up some clues that give you direction on what to look at and what to be checking that you may not have thought about before because it hadn't manifested with that person. But genetically, we resemble our brothers and sisters more than anyone else because we share common genes from each parent. So in your work with people, always keep that in mind, that there's a treasure trove of information out there. When you're puzzled or stuck or have a question in your mind, that's a great resource just to research, or in the case with the scan, have that brother or sister come in and do a scan and see what things correlate, what things coincide with the other person. I think you'll find your level of efficiency and improvement of that person will go way up. I think it'd be very interesting.
Okay, thanks.
Could that sister be cleared somehow so that she doesn't contract this disease?
Okay, so the database, so this is what I'm learning just from not having been told this by Lauren, but just because I've done quite a few people now and seen these patterns with diabetes, with a child that was showing diabetes and the mother was type 1 diabetic, and the baby's showing all these diabetic pancreatic stuff in her database, okay? So what I'm noticing, if I do the database scan about every 3 to 5 times, it changes. and it's going from cause down to symptom and
Nothing.
and then to nothing. So that's where I'm relying on monitoring to see if it's clearing, and they do. Everything eventually, I'm assuming, will clear after they've done enough optimizations, because it does not stay the same. It starts to change.
Okay. That was interesting. You mentioned apathy didn't ever come up. Nothing to do with the system. I was on a bus in Scotland a long time ago. On the back of the bus seat, somebody had written the problem with Scotland is apathy. And somebody had taken a pen and written on top of it, who cares? So, okay. Real quick, yes.
The thing I have found in doing thousands of tests on myself, and then I started doing my husband, he had a lot of the same things. But what I have done is I've done a lot of testing, and I found a number of things that were very, I'm diabetic, and I have had a lot of pancreas and cancer and different things. But as I go through the test, it always came up with certain infections, parasites, and bacterial. And once I got those cleaned up, but I did it with the other unit,
Acoustic light wave.
and I have found that once I got me clear, all the other things cleared up.
Yep.
So when you do the test, if it's more in those parasites, bacterial, once you get that cleared, everything except my eyes, and they even cleared a lot, and it was profound. And when you sleep with someone, then they take on a lot of those same energies. But I could, as I clear myself up, it's very similar in your thought process. When you clear yours, your generations will clear, and it will happen. And as I test them, the same thing happens.
Okay. All right. So I think what we're going to do here is we'll take a 10-minute break, let everybody get some stretch, get some water, go to the restroom. We're going to turn off live now, but we'll be back on in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, guys, here's Appreciate you being with us. We're going to turn this time now over to Alan, where he's going to talk about some of the mechanical and technical stuff about the equipment that would be helpful for you when working with your equipment. And when we're done with that, we'll be done with our live sessions today, but we will be doing some questions and answers here that we will be determining our next videos, which we'll be putting up. And for those that are online, you'll be able to see those within the next day or two on this channel. So Alan, it's up to you.
Thank you very much. One of the fastest growing parts of our business Start over again. One of the fastest growing parts of our business is people that are using the what's the AOScan client remote access unit to provide scanning and services to people at distance. Cheryl Lee is one of the biggest proponents of that. She has clients all over the Western United States, as far as I know. And what I'd like to do is, for some of you that are using remotes, you already know this, but some of the ones that you aren't, kind of open up this this great opportunity for you. This is a Generation 4 client remote. Some of you that have Generation 1, 2, and 3, they all still work. We feel that the bone conduction, after everything we've tested, I think Lauren would tell you that we feel that you get the most benefit from bone conduction. Also, of course, when you're doing remotes, with these, you don't have to take your hearing aids out, and you don't have to take the headphone on and off to talk on the telephone, telling what we're going to do next. And so the bone conduction is provided with the Generation 3 and Generation 4 remote access unit. The others will still work. If you plug in, actually, I guess, earbuds, or you know, we have the over-the-ear headphones that some of you are familiar with. They still work, but we found that the reason we went to bone conduction is we think that you're going to get the absolute most benefit, and then isn't that what it's all about? Is getting the most benefit. So when it comes in the box, it doesn't have the antennas on it, but those screw on and off. Now, if you're throwing these all in a box, don't mix up your remote antennas with the antennas on your scanner. The ones on the scanner are specifically tuned for that process, and these are specifically tuned for this board. There's circuit board in here, there's circuitry in here, and they're both specifically tuned. These are longer. You have a USB cable. This one that looks kind of like a little doghouse, that's called a USB-B, and it plugs into a USB-A into the computer. And then you have an audio cable. It plugs into the back. And the instructions, although they're not as fancy as some of the ones that Lauren does, I think they're pretty explanatory when it comes with how to plug all of this in. Now, this cable, I'm going to pretend like I'm the person, the remote client. And so I've plugged this audio cable into the microphone jack on my computer. In this particular instance, a few of you, we've talked about the 5H USB sound card. This is what it looks like. And the beauty of this is it provides a very clean signal coming right off of the motherboard. There's a USB that's plugged into the motherboard, and this can plug into the motherboard. We always plug this, for right now, into the Green Headphone. There's a headphone icon on there. I don't know if you can see that, but it's the green one, and that's where we plug in either our Bluetooth transmitter, if we're using Bluetooth headphones, or we plug in this. And when we're using this cradle, it's important that we're bringing those frequencies through this. So now I can plug that back into the computer. And I'm going to disconnect the camera. Now so this is what we call the USB cable on the client remote, and it's got two different ends. This is the end that goes, this is called a USB-A, and it goes into the computer. And when that happens, you're going to see a blue light that shows you that you're getting power to that cradle. Now, this remote will work with any computer that will download Teamviewer 12, as far as I know. Apple or Mac. I'm not sure. I've had some people that have Linux that have had some issues. There may be also some browsers. We generally recommend Google Chrome. We know that Google Chrome downloads Teamviewer well. Let me show you something that I think is going to be important for everybody. And I will do a separate video on this. I'll tell you exactly how I set up a piece of equipment. So when I'm setting up your equipment, and I set up Google Chrome, and I put Teamviewer in, you can see there's lots of different places to get Teamviewer. Some people are the real Teamviewer, and some people are other people like Twitter and et cetera. When you're downloading any of the programs that we use, and I'll go through this on a detailed video, there's very specific sites. Some people will not want to let you have a free version. Some people want to load a bunch of other things on your computer that you don't use. We always go to this one, the actual Teamviewer that says EN here. And when I double click this and download the free friends and family, this is a new thing. Then I go through the cycle to set up Teamviewer. But we have some information on that, but I'll even do some more instructional videos and maybe attach some documents so if you like to follow step by step. But the first most important thing is for your client to have Teamviewer on their computer. Now we recently, some of you that have been with us for a while, have noticed that we've gone from Teamviewer 9 to Teamviewer 12. Teamviewer 12 gives us the ability to do so many more things. We're still investigating them all. But the main thing it allows you to do, if you're going to really make your business, having clients as remotes, you may want to be able to be in a situation where you can talk to them freely without being on the cell phone, and they can see you back and forth. Kind of have that bedside manner, except for Dr. Labram and Dr. Lisenby and a few of the rest of you that may be naturopaths or MDs. But it's nice to be able to talk to people and see them, and while you're going over some of these scans. But you see where it says extras up here? This is a new thing. You hit extras and options, and look at all the things we can do. Remote control, security. Audio conferencing is the one thing. Who here has had a situation where they've had a remote client and they couldn't hear anything through their headphones? Cheryl has. Amy has. They put the headphones on. And so there's a couple different ways when you're going to do remotes. What I like to do is have them go to our YouTube channel and watch videos and see if they can hear that before we start to scan. Make sure that they can, hear the music. And if they're not hearing it, sometimes I'll have them put in any kind of headphones they have around, just to check out each of the devices, make sure that we're good. But the way Teamviewer is set up, and you won't be able to hear this, but when you see right here where it says voice playback, and that's the part that's important about your clients actually being able to hear it. If I see, I have a variety of devices here that I can send it through. I'm going to start with this one. If I hit this little, I'm hearing a ding, 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 ding. Now, if I wasn't hearing a ding, 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 and we'll, like say, maybe we'll do something just for your clients, so they, you know, on their side, that they see exactly how they do it, and we'd go to the next item and check on that, and then go ding, 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 and then hit the button. If you go through these items, you're going to find out where their computer is set up to send the sound. So, because everybody has a different computer and a lot of people have monitors with speakers on them, there's going to be differences, but we're going to be able to work through this all, and we'll give you, we'll invest, when you have problems, we'll get online with your clients and we'll work out the problems, and eventually you'll become experts in setting this up. Okay? So that's a new thing with TeamViewer 12. So let's say that I'm, you know, your client. Some people are making a lot of money by just letting other people use their computer. We have a client in Idaho that had a $1,600 a day just by selling, you know, increments through the day for people to log on her computer, and she wasn't even there, and she was camping. But now I have a computer set up in the other room, and this is the code. So when your client calls up, if they're going to be using your computer, you're going to tell them your code, and they're going to put it here. If you're going to be running the session, you're going to ask them what this number is on their computer, and you're going to put it here, and then you're going to hit connect to partner. And then you're going to ask them what that password is. You're going to give them that, and then you're going to be able to both look at the computer. Now, realistically, even though you're conducting the session, they can move the mouse. So it's great. Now, in my situation, I'm hoping I'm going to connect to the partner here, and hopefully the password hasn't changed. So I put in that, and I just log on. Okay. Windows, thank you very much. This is a good opportunity. Don't you love Windows? I basically tell Windows that I don't want them to have any information on me. Now, you can't tell, but I'm on the computer in the other room now. See how I can see the different screen? And then I can log onto the program, and I can select a client, I can add a client, I can change a technician. I can, you know, in this particular situation, generally, now there's times that I've had situations where one of you may have a problem with one of your pieces of equipment, and I may temporarily connect you to one of our computers. We would have you, you know, set up your own information so that when you do a scan. But basically, for most of you, this information with a remote, you're going to be doing this, and then you can go on and you can do those scans, scans just like this is just, I mean, you can't believe how powerful it was. Years ago, Lauren used to tell us about how a famous singer for his throat problems from Guangdong. This basically makes your business unlimited. You could be in Sandpoint, Idaho, or you could be in Pinedale, Arizona, or you can be you can be in Smithfield, Utah, and all your grandchildren and children can take advantage of this fantastic piece of equipment. Most of those things that we talked about now, I'm not sure how all the CEFI programs work, or how InterVoice works. Those are things that we will work on, and if there's a way that we can make it work to have more and more of those opportunities. But as we are right now, you can do those vital scans and comprehensive scans, and they can get the same treatment, won't say treatment, frequency optimization through these headphones remotely as they can in person. Anybody have any specific questions about that?
Tell my Dr. Roberts, unhappy, treated.
Well, I mean, in the clinical session, you can imagine, and we've, you know, a lot of the people that have been involved with Lauren's equipment are the most forward and progressive doctors in their fields. So over the last years that we've been working, we've worked with people that they may be in Heber or they may be in Pleasant Grove, but they have people come from, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 states to come to see them. And that's great, except for, you know, if they, you know, had Lyme disease and they lived in Blackfoot, Idaho, it was difficult, you know, for them to come back as often. When Dr. Roberts got this piece of equipment, I believe he had some clients that, you know, that early on that he continued to treat remotely from Blackfoot, Idaho, even though he was still in Pleasant Grove. And so this is a great opportunity. There's so many different ways, you know, to help people and make money using this remote, whether or not you open this to all your family. What a great Christmas present, you know, for a member of your family, or if you have, you know, family in one particular area where you may, you know, have other people going by to use this piece of equipment, or if you have clients, this may be, you may see them once or twice a year in person, but you may have almost weekly contact with them through their remotes. And eventually you'll have clients that, you know, that they've moved past the point where you need to run it with them, but they want to continue to use, you know, to be scanned or use the scanner, do that themselves. And so that's an option. That's based on your business model of how you want to do it. Amy?
Working within the Teamviewer, yeah, can you hear me? Okay, so working within the Teamviewer, and you have maybe a practitioner just using a remote unit on your mainframe. Can you preset a time that they automatically connect within Teamviewer so they know Monday from 9 to 2, that's their chunk of time, and they just automatically connect, or do you have to physically log them in to your computer?
You want to answer that, Lauren?
We do have a scheduling software. So if you were going to do that on your computer at home, you'd need to get a copy of that software from us. We'd probably have to install it on your system for you through Teamviewer. And then you block out time just like Google Calendar, and only that one client would be able to get in, and it would open at 12 o'clock, and it would shut them off at 11:59.09. So, yeah, that does that. We do have that software written. We have that on our server system. But if you were wanting to do that on your own system, you'd need to get a copy of that from us. One thing, Alan, can you hold up the remote so that the camera can see the face of it? If you look on there real close, you've got 2 triangles. One says copy, one says imprint. So if you're doing a remote session with somebody, you can ask them to remove their wedding band or put a glass of water on the side that says imprint. And from the remote computer, you can do all of the Cepheid imprints. You can do an erase. You can do a copy if they had something you were going to copy. But if you're while they're doing their frequency optimization, have them put their ring or bracelet or a bottle of water or a tincture. And that way, everything that they're doing is being imprinted as it comes back to their headset right into that whatever's on there in real time as it's happening. So this is a major, major step forward in our technology for the remotes, and it is something that's absolutely amazing. So they not only get the therapy or the optimization, thank you, but they also walk away or with their remedy. So those do function. What we have not tested, what Alan was referring to, was the inner voice. We've not tested that over the internet. Now we can do it. Your voice will go through everything. We just haven't. We need to compare what it would be through the internet compared to what it would be right here to see if we're picking up any noise through the internet. So that's what we haven't validated. That's what Alan is saying. We're still doing research on that. If that proves to work, then you've just changed that whole remote business to a whole nother model by being able to do inner voice remotely. So, but all the CEFI programs do work on that. Okay, Alan, go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead.
I did have one specific question about the use of Teamviewer. There's obviously a free version and then there's a paid version. Is there any benefit for using the paid version? Is it just yes?
Okay, Teamviewer, they have a free version and a paid version. We have the corporate paid version, and we can have unlimited people on that program. The way it works is you pay $185 a year, and you have full access to our version. Or you can go on and buy your own, and I believe it's $450 for the year. So you can share through us if you want and use our license. All you have to do is call Alan. He'll take your credit card, and then he'll give you the code that you put on your system. Okay? Okay. The difference of the paid and the non-paid is if Teamviewer sees your computer, your IP address on a lot for a very long period of time, they'll shut you off. So that's why everything that we do here, we are on the corporate paid version so that we don't ever get turned off. If you're working on a free version with your clients, you will start getting cut off. So I'd recommend jumping on to ours, or you can get your own, but it is a little cheaper to go through us.
And then just follow though. You as the host need to have the paid license. Any remote clients, they could use the free to connect.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is if you're the paid version, you're using a paid version as the main computer, the remote people don't have to buy one because their IP is only going to be tuning on every once in a while. But yours is going to be going on and off all day long if you're doing a lot of remotes. So buy that license. And you can do it as long as you can but they will start shutting you off after about 5 minutes. And that's really frustrating. So if you're going to be doing a lot of remote work, either get your own license or tag onto our license. Any other questions with the remote stuff?
The other thing you may find out is if your internet service says Acme Clinic, Burley, Idaho, they have a way of picking up that it's a business address or a business internet service, and they'll say, we've noticed that you're doing this from a business, and they will sometimes knock you off for that.
Either that or give you a little message that says, please play fair. So.
Okay. All right. I'd like to talk about the headsets because that could be a lot of issues. Now, we've already talked about the fact that with a bone conduction headset, the way to put it on is from the back, like this. We've got probably a half a dozen that have come back from people that have done it this way and eventually cracked and broke this headset. Now, this headset originally, these were $85, weren't they, Lauren? We were selling them, importing them, and going to sell them to you for $79 to just cover our costs. Like a lot of different things, Amazon, has sold these anywhere from $45 to $54. So the ones that we have imported, and because they have a lithium-ion battery, it's very difficult for us to import them. We have to bring them over in a container. We can't ship them DHL. So we'd prefer to keep the ones that we have in stock to continue to service our customers. I will send you the link if you want to buy an extra headset to go ahead and buy it from Amazon. Fair enough? come in white and black. We generally have imported the black ones. They have 3 buttons. This button turns it on and off, and this button here lowers the volume. This button raises the volume. This button here also has a light in it. When you first plug it in, if it needs to be charged, it'll turn red until such time as it's charged sufficiently. You turn it on and off by pushing and holding down, and it'll say power on. Generally, it'll give you all kinds of instructions like, go to Bluetooth menu and do different things like that to connect it to the headphones. You have several different ways to connect these. You have several ways to connect this to the computer. If you're not going to be using a Cephy, then the best way probably the best way is to just connect it, to pair it directly to your computer. That way, you don't have to pair every time. Every time you turn on your computer and these are on, they will pair automatically. Okay. Well, these have a technology, and the computer has a technology that they're searching for each other. When you have this on here, you can see right down here. This particular, if you had this in the box, or learn to know, it's YKL701. That's what this is. This is a YKL701 model wireless Bluetooth headset. And so this shows that this is paired with this particular computer. Actually, it's not paired with this one because this one over here is. And I hold it until it said power off. So this is the one that's paired, and so if I hold this down, it says power on. I guess it's, and it says phone 1 connected. It's already paired with the computer. Now, if you're using a Cephy, we need to use a Y cable to split it. Now, if you have a lab unit, what we're basically asking you to do is to take this device, this 5H USB sound card, and plug it into the back of the computer. To plug the Y into the green side, plug your headset direct, this is the wired headset, or a Bluetooth transmitter. Now we have two Bluetooth transmitters. The newer one that we're sending out is kind of round and has a button in the center. Very powerful. But this one also works very well. This is a rectangular one. And you would plug that into 1/2 of the Y, and then you would plug either the Cephy, either of these Cephys, or the cord that comes out of the back of the lab unit into the other one. And then you would plug this into your computer. And this other one that wasn't connecting to something, let me show you how this works. So when we hold down this button, when it's charged, it'll turn blue momentarily. And then when I turn on the headset, and it says that power is on, you won't be able to probably hear this. Maybe we'll do a voiceover for this video. You can see the light is flashing red and blue. That means that it's in the pairing mode. So it says it's disconnected, ready to pair. It kind of makes you think you need to do something, but you just need to be patient. Hold them close together. And pairing is complete. And when the pairing is complete, then this will just flash intermittently. We'll do some other videos, and we'll use great audio where you can hear everything that's happening here to make that simpler. But so with these, if you're not using a Cephy, the easiest thing is to just link it directly to the Bluetooth menu on your computer. If you are using a Cephy or if you have a lab unit, use what we call the USB sound card, which is this device, the Y cable into the green, Bluetooth transmitter on one side, and the Cephy either out of your lab unit or out of your separate Cephy into the other side. Now I want to show you something that some of you, when you plug this in, all of a sudden it changes the sound panel on your computer. Sometimes when you call me and you tell me that there's no sound coming out of the computer, on Teamviewer you'll see me type in sound down here. And I'll see the sound control panel come up. I'll click on that and it'll start telling me what's connected. Now, I have the headset connected because I was using it originally plugged in directly into the back. And then I have this thing that says USB PNP sound device. This is the USB PNP sound device, this USB sound card. When I'm going to get my sound from this, then I want to go up here and I want to click on this and I want to make this my default device. And then all the sound is going to come through this as opposed to the speakers. Sounds complicated. We'll do some more videos. But if now at least you've been here, you know what the USB sound card is. You know what the Bluetooth transmitter is. It's either the round one or the rectangular one. And you know that this is going to give you a variety of commands. When I first turn one on, I generally turn the sound all the way up so I can hear the commands. And then when I put it on my head, then I can adjust the sound. The sound doesn't need to be obnoxious or doesn't need to hurt your ears or be pounding your ears. You just need to be aware of it and be able to hear it and feel it. But like I say, if all of a sudden, now these can be overcharged. We originally had the cradles come with a place to charge your headphones. And you could plug your Bluetooth transmitters also into the computer. The computer doesn't have smart charging capability like a cell phone charger has. We are going to have available, when the container arrives, a very fancy, very high quality charger that will charge 2 items. I don't know exactly what the price on this will be, Lauren, but they'll be available soon. If you go to Walmart and buy yourself a high quality USB charger, I'd get one that's 1.5 or 2 amp minimum to charge your devices. You'll always know that when they're plugged in that they'll always be charged, but they won't be overcharged.
This is really important on this charger. If you go buy one, these are going to probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $15. I don't know. But you can go buy one at any store as long as it says Intelligent Auto ID. That means it will sense when the battery it's hooked up to it is reached its full charge, and then it drops to a trickle. If you don't have an auto ID, it'll just keep charging, and like your laptop will. And we probably burned through 40 or 50 headphones because we didn't understand, and our clients didn't understand. By keeping them plugged in, it destroyed the internal battery in the headset. So whether you get it from us or you get it from anywhere else, as long as it's an auto ID that it senses that when the battery is full, you'll be fine.
And what I'll try to do is I'll try to find one on Amazon that I can always send you the link if you don't want to wait for or buy it from us. We'll give you an option. We just want you to have headsets that work when your client's there. We don't want you to have somebody sitting in your office and the headset won't work. I would suggest, and we'd be glad to sell you a regular headset like we used to use with the Generation 1 and Generation 2 client remotes. They're a good headset. They fold, they're compact. It's always a good thing to have an extra headset in case for any reason that day it just doesn't want to pair or somehow it's not charged up. Yeah, like say, you can use any set of headphones These are specially tuned, specifically for this process, and we believe that the bone conduction is giving you the most benefit, and you can and you don't have to worry about removing hearing aids, and you don't need to worry about the frequency over time, causing any nerve deafness or anything like that.
Let me explain. Any headset has a speaker in it. We're just using the coils in the speaker. The better the headset, the better the resolution of the information back and forth. Alan mentioned earlier earbuds. If you were in a real fix, earbuds will work. The resolution will not be as high, but it's better than nothing. Alan mentioned that these are specially tuned. We buy these directly from the manufacturer, and they put an extra coil in these for us so that it's tuned to the antennas that are right here. But you can buy them, like Alan said, off Amazon, and it'll be maybe a little cheaper through Amazon. It'll work as well. And if you're in a real fix, any over the ear is better than an earbud, but any headset will work as well. Remember, all we're using is the speaker coils to do the transfer of the information back and forth. So the better the coil and magnet, the better the resolution to us. We know that if you use this stuff that we provide to you, has been tuned to be the most accurate and the highest resolution. But that does not mean that you cannot do it otherwise. One last thing. Teamviewer, when you're doing remotes, I actually scanned my wife at IHOP waiting for our food on my Samsung Note 7 or whatever it was on her phone. So her phone logged into the computer, and we scanned her right there at breakfast. That was the coolest thing. We had 6 or 7 people standing around our little booth watching us scan her on the phone. So anything that can log on to a remote desktop, you can do remotes with. So iPads, phones, whatever.
But if you have the iPhone, you have to hook in the remote.
Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but the question was, if you have an iPhone, you're going to have to plug in a headset of some kind into there's a little box that we have that you put on the back of your phone that converts the signal from the headset into the box. But the point is you don't have to have a computer. It can be a tablet, it can be a phone, as long as you have the little mobile adapter. Okay? You would need this block. It would replace this block. Any headset will work. In that situation, we didn't have one of those. We just used her headset from her phone. Okay, Alan, go ahead.
Anything else? Charlie?
So, we talked just, one of the requests that I have is when you do your next video, explain for the client on the other end how to turn on and off the headset. That's missing in the paperwork, and that's been a complication that I've had with not those headset. None of my clients have that. Everybody has the other bone conductors, and they've not understood how to turn it on, turn it off, how to charge it, how long to charge it, and I haven't always had the right answers with the charging for that.
Well, let's just kind of go over it again. You can see both of these are intermittently flashing, and so I haven't turned them off. If you're some of our doctor's offices, they've got people coming in every other moment. They don't want to pair them and unpair them, and so they're leaving them on. And a lot of them have purchased a second headset that they've got also paired, or they're going to pair it, or it's charging. And so if you're doing people from 8:30 in the morning until 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you're probably going to need to have 2 headsets. These will probably last 3 or 4, about 4 hours. So you need a second one to switch to. Now we've had people that and I think didn't you, Cheryl Lee, for a while use the wired headset. You can use this one as your main headset if you want to. Some people just don't like to deal with the pairing situation. This one, if it's charged, it's on, it's, you're good to go, and you still get that same bone conduction benefit for this. On this one, I believe I turned it off. I don't know how you can see. Can you kind of zoom in on this, Joseph? I hold it down, and when the blue light comes on, it'll flash a couple times, and then it'll flash intermittently. A brand new car.
One thing to remember too when you're charging, if you're using the charger that Alan had just showed you, you can plug your headphone back into that in between clients because it will never overcharge your system. But do not do that on a normal phone charger on the wall, one of those, because they don't have an auto detect. So it needs to be like one either we have here or one that you can buy. But always in between, if you just plug it back in, you might get by with one headset.
And always carry your charging cables with you. Now, we provide charging cables, with this one, with these, when you get them. But they all use a standard micro USB charging cable that every Samsung, computer comes with. I'd buy a quality one because you've got a quality business, but you could probably pick them up for $2 or $3 at the convenience store. In a pinch, if you got someplace and you found that this wouldn't start, you could plug the charger into the side, plug this either into the computer or the cradle, and start using it immediately. It'll start, and it may have a red light, which means it's charging, but it'll probably have enough power to work. It's a little bit harder to do that with the wireless headset than the wired, but in a pinch you can charge those and use them immediately. So with this one, it will, if you look at it over the space of 30 seconds, you're going to see it flash intermittently. To turn it off, you just hold it, and while you're holding it, the light will be blue, and then it'll go off. So when you push it and hold it down, when it's on, the light will go blue, and it'll go off completely. Any other questions? Now, kind of a new area. Let's kind of talk about troubleshooting. Some of you have turned on your computer to say license file missing, or USB error, communication error. That basically means that for some reason the computer is not seeing the cradle. Everybody knows what the cradle is, right? Oop. This one's not glued together again. We've been working with different things, but the most important thing for you to look at when you get one of those errors is, oops, crunch, is, are the red lights flashing? You see the red lights flashing? There we go. So if the red lights are flashing, you know that at least the 5 volt and the ground on that USB connector are connected. You can still get kind of like a little hiccup or shunt in the data parts. There's 4 different connections in that USB. 5 volt ground and 2 data connections. Sometimes when you get a little hiccup that says license communication area, check your connection, the solution is to basically unplug it at the back of the computer, to follow this cable to the back of the computer, unplug it and plug it back in, and then restart your program. That's something we don't want that to happen to you, so we're working very, very hard engineering a new fix, and we believe we have it. And almost all of you that have cradles now will be getting a new cradle. But in the meantime, any type of, this is not a refrigerator from R.C. Willey. This is a complicated communication device that is sometimes sampling one of those items that you're looking at 2,000 times in mere nanoseconds. And need to, over time, get a little more adept of dealing with some of the things that people deal with electronics, see that. If you talk to our engineer, he has pieces of equipment that cost many thousands of dollars. None of us could afford them, testing equipment, and every once in a while, it'll get a glitch and has to be turned off and turned back on. We know that the biggest issue for you is not your patients, but the confidence that your clients have in that scan. Like, well, what's happening? How come it's not working? Type situation. So we want to minimize that so those things almost never happen. But anytime you're working with sophisticated electronics that are looking at thousands of items and sampling those items thousands of times in mere nanoseconds, there is always the possibility that something will happen. And so I think you should kind of expect this, and you might even explain to your clients that this is a complicated piece of equipment that is doing amazing things. I think I had a discussion with somebody about this equipment, and this goes even back to the equipment that we had before this. Lauren told you that we sent Juanita to have about $70,000 worth of testing. 7,000. Well, and when you think of all the hundreds of things that are tested on this equipment, some of you that are doctors or have been RNs, you know that if you went to Intermountain up in Murray or Intermountain here in Provo and said, do you have a non-invasive test for the back of my thyroid or pituitary or whatever, they're going to say, huh? Well, we'd be glad to cut you open and go in there and look at it. It'll be $30,000, and we hope you don't get staph infection. We're looking at something truly amazing here that looks at these subtle frequencies, and we're looking at like Lauren said, hundreds of items, and in some cases thousands of items, and sampling those frequencies sometimes thousands of times. I think if your clients understand that, they'll be a little bit more understanding that when you do something 1,000 times, occasionally you stub your toe, and that something will happen. We are really working to make it as bulletproof and seamless and without any little glitches as possible, but those things still may happen and they shouldn't throw you. In most cases, if you unplug the cradle, plug it back in, restart the program, that's going to solve the problem. The other thing I'd like to talk about is we live in Microsoft's world, and there's not a lot we can do about that. The changes that Microsoft made are the things that basically made the 9D program almost impossible to support. Every time there was an update, we would have to go back and install all your drivers and reset your equipment. You know that Microsoft, when they have an update, that basically means that they have clients that have paid to collect information from your computer, and they don't want you to not do that. And so they will. And sometimes when you get that thing that says license file is missing, that means that there's an update. And so if you go into settings or into Windows Update and check that, you'll find that there's an update that is ready. And so if you run those updates, that'll often also clear the problem. I don't think there's anything we can do about Microsoft. I just think we want to learn to adapt and understand what's going on with them. Let's talk a little bit about virus software. We have found that the virus software that comes with Windows 10, which is called the Windows Defender, is just about as good as anything out there. And when we send your computer out, it's basically designed to check definitions every single morning, update those definitions, and scan your computer continuously. And so generally, we don't expect you to have problems with your computer. One thing I would say is, if you're a doctor's office and you have people in the waiting room that are lined up to use this equipment, I would suggest that you don't ever use this equipment for anything other than its specific purpose. I wouldn't necessarily, I went to a doctor's office and the technicians in between offices were checking Facebook and, sending emails and all kinds of different things back and forth. And a lot of doctors also have office management software, that, saves their files and different things like that. Understand that a lot of different other things can interfere with this very sophisticated program. And that the less other programs you have on there, the better. If you're going to be emailing files to clients directly from this computer, which is convenient, I would set up a separate email. I would say deannascans at gmail.com, Eileen Erickson, scans or whatever at gmail.com. Have a thing and just use that email account just for sending scans. I wouldn't even give it to anybody and have them send me documents.
In other words, don't use your own email on there because you get email all the time. You don't want that interfering with your system. So like Alan said, set up a new email account, whether it's with Yahoo or Outlook or Gmail, that is just for you to send your files out. That way, when all your personal email comes in, it's not coming onto this computer and go from there. And like we said earlier, all of the data on these systems is encrypted. So if it did get hacked, it would be a real mess for them to decipher.
There was a time not too long ago, you remember that, what Equifax just got hit for 140 million of your credit reports. Thanks a lot. But there are people that are just, there was the ransomwares, and there was 3 or 4 of them, and we were, working on that. It seemed like we hit a little bit of a sweet spot. The highest level of security would be when you want to email something to somebody. If you were a large office and you depended on this equipment working first time every time, I would save the file to a thumb drive and take it to another computer. So it's your equipment. If you want to check recipes and email your grandkids, that's your right. Just let you know that when your computer becomes infected, our technical services rate for that is $85 an hour. The middle security level is where you have that separate email address and you only use that to scan things. You don't have anybody send you back emails to that. Thanks for sending my scan. That's only for sending things out. And that third level, like I say, is where you save things on a thumb drive, take them to a separate computer, and send them out. Because, Shirley?
So this brings me to one of my questions of the security of doing remotes. Because I'm hooked up to the internet through Teamviewer when I am doing remotes. Is there something else I need to protect?
Teamviewer is already encrypted. Teamviewer is not going to be your problem. It's when you go and do other surfing on the web that you're going to get in trouble. When you're going through Teamviewer, they've got their firewalls on both ends, so you don't have to worry about being on Teamviewer. It's just when you leave Teamviewer and you stay with an open browser that you open yourself up to trouble. So Teamviewer is not going to be your issue.
And we are always looking at other products, other platforms besides Teamviewer, because Teamviewer has made different changes from time to time. Teamviewer will be trying to advertise you all the time. Every time you go in and out, they say, like us, be fair, buy a license, everything like that. Generally, if you're using it the way we generally know that most of you are using it, you don't need to worry about that. Just say, okay, yeah, you're great. But understand they're always going to be selling to you. And just, don't do that. From an overall standpoint, one of the things that some of you will see is some of you, if you have CenturyLink, when I first set up Deanna's brand new service with CenturyLink, I don't know who you're with now, we went in and immediately looked at it, and we couldn't understand what happened to the computer. They had put 64 different programs that were running in the background. So, some of your internet providers, will cause you problems that we can't anticipate. but we'll be there to kind of hold your hand, and we'll work it out if we have to reinstall systems, something. We have a lot of capability that way, but that can happen.
My recommendation for you guys that are doing this as a business and you're serious about this is probably hire an IT tech to come out to your house, check your internet connection, make sure that you've got the proper firewall, make sure that you've got all the protections and got rid of all the bloatware and that stuff off your system. Maybe even have them help you set up an isolated channel in your existing internet to where it's separate from everything else you do. It might cost you a couple $100, maybe $300 for someone to come out and do that, but it'll save you so much grief. Like Alan said, you get on there and get things messed up, and we have to start working with it. It costs you more than that if you have very many problems. So if you're going to get serious about this, pay somebody to do it. And the other thing is, if you're in an area where you do not have good internet, then remotes aren't going to be the thing for you to do. It's going to be very slow, and the slower it is, the more likelihood you're going to pick up noise. So you want a high-speed internet, and you want a clean internet. If it's just for your home and for your family use, I don't know if I would go to all that extent. But we got hit 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. We got hacked. All 14 of our websites got hacked and taken down. Cost us $7,000, $7,700, whatever it was, and almost 48 hours before we could get them cleaned and back up and fixed. Can you go to Energy Dev right now? Mm-hmm. And so we actually pay this company now to monitor our system. Go all the way down to the bottom of the page, right there. You see that right there over in the bottom right? We pay them to make sure that our website never has that problem again. And that might be something, well, you're not working with a website, but I'm just saying it's happening to everybody, and it's becoming more and more frequent, these hacking attacks. And so you need to assess how you're going to use this system. Okay?
Yes.
Can you make a list? Because, this non-techie person that uses technology every day, you just kind of went over my head with all the things that I would ask a techie, my computer guy, to do for me. So is there a way that we could have that list in writing of what we would want them to do? Because you lost me like after the third thing. Okay, thanks.
That's fair enough. We can write up a thing that you could give to an IT tech. You're just basically asking them you want to get rid of everything that's on your internet that's not necessary. You don't need any of their bloatware, and you want a firewall. But we can write that up, can't we?
Yeah, and there are unscrupulous people out there that will put a bunch of free programs on your thing and charge you hundreds of dollars. And so if you can find somebody that's recommended in your area, that's something we can't give you is a good recommendation on somebody in your particular area. But the concept is saying, I've got a business where I treat people with a complicated piece of medical device. I need to make sure that I'm I'm up, that I can be connected all the time, and I send high frequency information over the internet. I want to have a good solid connection, but we'll work on that. And Lauren will, when Lauren's in China and still adjusting to the time change, we'll have him write that up.
Go ahead.
So just a detailed request on that. Okay. Are there any special ports if you were to build a firewall? Sorry, technical question. If you are building a firewall, isolating it into its own channel, are there special ports? I mean, can you lock down all ports except for the 1, 2, 3, however many you need? Would you include that? I'm not going to ask you to list them off right now. But
we'll consult that. We'll kick that up to our tier 2 technical support people and kind of get all of our technology partners to weigh in on it, and then we'll come up with the best advice for you. But you understand that everybody, you're all using different providers in different locations, and it's always going to be a little bit different. We'll try and give you some guidance that'll at least get you headed down the right road. And if we can get some information from other people, say, what should this cost to do this, and so that you don't get into a situation where you're ripped off. But like I say, we have people, that have had $1,600 days, and if their equipment didn't work that day, it would have cost them $1,600. And those are not doctors' offices. We have doctors' offices that do 40 scans a day. At $100 to $150 a day. I haven't figured that out. But if their equipment was not working or got infected somehow and we couldn't, be there in that single day, a lot of times I've taken, calls from early in the morning from the East Coast, late at night for different locations, Saturdays and Sundays, et cetera, when people, have this equipment and it's not functioning correctly, and so. Having the best environment for your equipment to operate is critical if this is going to be your business.
Okay, is there any more technical that we need to cover, Alan?
I don't think so.
I think we've got it. Okay, we've had somebody online wants to know if we're going to talk a little bit about the AO body, and I think this would be a good time to show AO body. And I'm going to turn off these lights here so that you can see it better. AO body is right now it's eye candy for your system.
Oops.
And
what a surprise.
But within the next 18 months, AO body will become an integrated part of your program. AO body was developed by Zygote Medical Media here in Utah. And all of the graphics that you see, all of the images that we have up there, we contracted with them to develop for us. And this program here, we had them custom make this one for us. And it allows you to explore the body, both male or female, in 3 dimension. Zoom in, travel through the body, do all sorts of things. But what I'd like you to do, Alan, can you go up to the right corner in the search and type in PCA? All right, now see that it drops down the menu over there? The PCA anterior temporal vein or artery. And you click on that. Now, if you're scanning somebody's brain, there's, I think, a couple hundred or 110 arteries that we scan and 110 veins that we scan. Well, I'd never heard of the PCA, and I'll bet most people hadn't. Well, here he types that in, and it shows it to you right there in the brain. And if you click on the target up in the top left corner, it'll show you right where the vein is. See that right there? The red one that's highlighted. Oh, wait, did we lose it? Click on PCA. Yeah, click on that again.
Okay.
There it is. That's the vein that we just scanned that came out. Is that not awesome? So now what did I say we were? Educators. Thank you. This is one of the best tools.
So when you zero in, when you zero in on that, will there ever be somewhere where you can look up in a database and it can tell you what function it does for your body?
Yes and yes and yes. I get really excited about this, and I'm told not to talk about things that are coming because then that's all everybody focuses on. So I'm not talking to you about this. But in a year or so from now, you'd be able to click on that vein and it would scan it for you in real time right there, and give you the data that you need on that particular vein. Yes, you can do a frequency optimization. AO body, this is where we're headed. So when I say we're never going to be done, we're never going to be done because technology is at a point where it's allowing us to continue to do some pretty phenomenal things. But to be able to go in and show them this is the vein or the artery, in this case it's an artery, that maybe have had an issue. Maybe it came up with an 8 or a 9. That shows them, oh yeah, I have pain back here or a numbness back. You'll be surprised at how people will start to acknowledge, yes. Okay, now you can hit the target again.
Okay.
Oh, before you do that, down here you can change the background color from white to black. I like the black. I think the black makes things snap a little better and shows things. And then if you hit, let's go to man now. So click the man symbol or male symbol. And bring us back to, and it will load the man or the male database. Now, if you click on this, it will remove the shorts. I'm not kidding you. I'm just telling you. So if you're dealing with kids that are impressionable, you may not see. Okay. Anyway, the point is, it's anatomically correct, and it's there for you now when you're dealing with adults and you're in, you have adult type issues. That this kind of helps put it into perspective. Okay, now if you come over to this side, you see the scroller bar here. As you slide that down, you remove one layer at a time all the way down. This is why we saved it for the last. You wake up a little bit and get excited. All the way down. And so, and at any point, if I wanted to look at just the heart, if you go up and click on search, Alan.
Okay.
And just type in heart. And then click on the heart itself. No, on the word heart.
Okay.
You see it, right? It shows you the heart. There it is. Now you hit your target. Zooms it in, and now you can rotate that around, look down the artery or down the veins. And so it really helps you help your client understand more about their body. And the more that they know about them and how their body works and how everything is interconnected, it just makes the whole process of what you're trying to do easier, because they now go home. And the beauty of this is you can print that. You can click on it and it'll print it out and then go home with it.
I mean, if somebody's apathetic about taking care of their arteries and veins, just looking at this and saying, wow, I've got a Maserati in my chest.
You see, this is really exciting stuff. And this, right now, this is only a tool, like the website was with the definitions, to help them understand where it is, what it's doing in the body. Now, there is a learning curve to this, so you need to go home. You've got it on your systems. You need to go home and play with it. Get familiar with the functions, how the keys work, how you can search things. Go up and type in pancreas.
Oops.
There it is. Click on pancreas.
Okay.
Now click on your target. That brings it front and center. So it's one of these tools where you can really use it to help educate. So we got an issue with the ampule of the water duct that says it's coming out. It just helps them understand where these things are. So this is AO body, and like I say, Zygote's working with, pardon me? Oh, I don't know. I'm just using that. You're trying to make me show you how stupid I am. But anyway, this is a very wonderful tool to work with right now. Get familiar with it, because within the next year or year and a half, this will be what you're scanning from rather than the other images. And be able to see it in 3D happen is going to be a major step forward. And nobody that I know of in the industry is going this direction. Zygote Body's been working on this project with this since March. And like I say, it's going to probably be a year to a year and a half before it's finished. So, okay, this is AO body. And the nice thing about it, you can pull up lymph nodes, you can pull up cells, you can pull up all sorts of things by just typing it in, and it will pull it up and show it for you. Some of the graphics are going to be like this that are weak. Which one is this one that we're on?
Lacrimal. I didn't even know there was a lacrimal gland.
So, all right. So, another one that you can do is go into the brain. Just click right there on the brain. Let's go back and click on female.
Oh, female. Okay.
Okay. Now just scroll all the way down to the brain. And as you zoom in, no, you've got a, yeah, there you go. And then bring it down so you can see it better. All right, and then you can just slowly move your slider bar, and it will start to extend out, so that you can really show how everything is interconnected from the cerebellum all the way out to the rest of the body. Isn't that fun? So this is AO Body. Right now it's just an educational tool for you, but as our research and work continues, it will become an integral part of the scan. All right, so with this, I'm going to say thank you for coming to our live audience, and hope this was helpful. Please remember info@energydev.com for comments, questions. And what? Okay. All right. Thank you for attending. It's on your system now. Can you give me my lights, please? All right. I don't want to take